Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question that might shake you a little bit. How many dreams have you buried because you couldn't stay consistent long enough to see them breathe? Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they're inconsistent. They treat greatness like a hobby instead of a lifestyle. But today, I'm here to tell you, your breakthrough is not waiting for more talent, more motivation, or more inspiration. Your breakthrough is waiting for more consistency. The kind of consistency that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. You've got to train yourself to stay consistent. Consistency is not a gift, it's a muscle. It's strengthened through repetition, discipline, and commitment. See, the mistake most people make is thinking they should only move when they feel like moving. But if you only act when your emotions say go, you will always stay stuck. Emotion is a visitor, discipline is a resident. And the people who win in life are the ones who obey their commitments more than their feelings. Let me give you a hook right here. Your future will not respect your excuses, but it will reward your consistency. Every single day you show up, especially on the days you don't want to, you are casting a vote for the future you desire. Every small step, every repeated action, every intentional choice, that's what builds momentum. Momentum doesn't come from intensity, it comes from consistency. Most people want to sprint into success, but the secret is learning how to walk with discipline every single day. And understand this, consistency is not just about habits, it's about identity. You don't become successful by doing a thing. You become successful by becoming the type of person who does that thing repeatedly. If you want to be wealthy, act like a wealthy thinker daily. If you want to be fit, move like someone who values their health daily. If you want to be powerful, speak, think, and act powerfully daily. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your training. So train yourself to stay consistent. Every excuse you make today becomes a regret you face tomorrow. Stop giving your comfort zone the authority to decide your destiny. Every time you break consistency, you're teaching your mind that quitting is acceptable. But every time you stay consistent, no matter how small, you train your mind that you are unstoppable. Consistency is the evidence of belief. If you believe you deserve more, you'll show up more. If you believe in your future, you'll invest in it daily. And if you truly believe in your purpose, you won't let your feelings sabotage your destiny. Consistency is not a trait you were born with. It's a muscle you build through deliberate repetition, intentional effort, and disciplined follow-through. Most people keep waiting for the perfect day, the perfect mood, or the perfect burst of motivation before they take action. But that mindset keeps them trapped in cycles of procrastination and disappointment. The people who rise, the people who excel, the people who transform their lives are the ones who understand that consistency is something you train, not something you wait for. You train it like you train a muscle, by showing up even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, and especially when your emotions try to negotiate your way out of responsibility. Your future self is shaped not by the intensity of your occasional efforts, but by the reliability of your daily actions. That's the truth most people avoid because it places accountability directly in their own hands. The reason consistency feels hard is because your mind is conditioned to protect you from effort. It wants comfort, familiarity, and ease. It wants you to stay the same. But here's the hook. Every time you show up when your mind tells you not to, you're reprogramming your identity and rewriting your destiny. You're teaching your subconscious that you are someone who follows through, someone who honors commitments, someone who moves even when the mood isn't there. And the more you train this, the more natural consistency becomes. At some point, it stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a standard. What once required effort becomes automatic, and what once felt heavy becomes part of your rhythm. People often underestimate the compound effect of small daily actions. They think if they're not making giant strides, it doesn't matter. But that's not how growth works. You don't see the strength of a muscle when you lift the first weight, you see it after months of consistent repetition. You don't see the transformation of your life in a single action. You see it in the accumulation of disciplined choices. And the beauty of consistency is that it creates a return on investment far greater than the work it costs. When you train yourself to stay consistent, you're not just building a habit, you're building a character trait that elevates every area of your life. Your relationships improve because you show up. Your finances improve because you stay diligent. Your skills improve because you commit to the process. Consistency is the doorway to mastery, and mastery is the gateway to opportunity. There will be days when you feel tired, overwhelmed, unmotivated, and uninspired. Those days are the real training days. Those are the days that separate the average from the exceptional. Anyone can work when they feel good, but very few work when it feels tough. And here's another hook for you. It's the work you do when you don't feel like it that builds the kind of person you've always wanted to become. That's where your power is. Not in your motivation, but in your discipline. Not in your emotion, but in your commitment. Not in your intentions, but in your actions. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up again and again. Even if yesterday wasn't your best, you simply refuse to quit. You refuse to break the promise you made to yourself. You refuse to let temporary feelings dictate permanent results. When you train yourself to stay consistent, you unlock a level of self-respect that becomes unshakable. You start to trust yourself, believe in yourself, and expect more from yourself. That's when life starts responding differently to you. Doors open that were once closed. Opportunities appear that once seemed impossible, because consistency is not just a behavior, it's a declaration of who you are becoming. Small daily actions are the quiet architects of extraordinary outcomes. They're the tiny, almost invisible steps that compound into massive transformation over time. Most people overlook these small actions because they seem too simple, too insignificant, or too slow to produce instant gratification. But here's the truth. The small things you do repeatedly shape the big things you become. The results you want are not hiding behind a single breakthrough moment. They're hiding inside the consistent repetition of tiny habits that build momentum. And momentum, not motivation, is what drives long-term success. This is the part most people get wrong. They chase dramatic changes, big leaps, and overnight wins, while the real power lies in doing something meaningful every single day, even if it looks small from the outside. Every major accomplishment begins with an almost unimpressive first step. The best-selling author starts with a single sentence. The athlete begins with a short run. The wealthy investor started by saving a small amount consistently. The transformation doesn't come from sporadic intensity, it comes from repeated consistency. And here's a powerful hook. You don't rise to greatness by doing big things once. You rise by doing small things well over and over again. The small actions are not placeholders, they're the foundation. They're the training ground that prepares you for bigger responsibilities, bigger challenges, and bigger opportunities. The beauty of small daily actions is that they eliminate the excuses. Anybody can commit to a small step. You may not have the energy, time, or resources for massive action every day, but you always have the capacity to take one small step forward, and one small step forward is infinitely better than standing still. When you do something small every day, you remove the emotional drama and the mental heaviness that stop most people. You no longer battle perfectionism, procrastination, or the pressure to perform at a high level every single time. You simply show up. And because you show up daily, you build rhythm. Rhythm turns into routine. Routine turns into identity. And identity turns into results. The mind responds powerfully to repetition. Every time you take a small action, you reinforce a narrative about who you are. You tell yourself, I am someone who follows through. I am someone who takes action. I am someone who moves toward my goals daily. That kind of internal reinforcement is more powerful than any external motivation. It transforms how you think, behave, and perceive yourself. And here's another hook. Small daily actions are not just changing your life, they are changing your self-image. And your self-image determines your destiny. When you start believing you are someone who takes action, you naturally do more. The small steps begin to multiply, accelerate, and evolve into larger steps. What once felt overwhelming becomes normal. What once felt out of reach becomes expected. Another reason small actions matter is because they create consistency without burnout. Big actions require big energy, but small actions are sustainable, and sustainable progress is the only progress that actually lasts. It's easy to sprint for a day. It's much harder to walk every day for a year, but the one who walks daily will always surpass the one who sprints occasionally. Greatness is less about intensity and more about longevity. And longevity is driven by the daily, deliberate, repeated choices you make. Choices so small they almost seem irrelevant until you look back and realized they changed everything. Every empire is built one brick at a time. Every master was once a beginner practicing basic skills. Every success story you admire was created through small, consistent effort. So when you take that small daily action, no matter how simple or insignificant it seems, remember this powerful truth. That small action is the spark, the seed, the beginning of your transformation. Keep watering it. Keep showing up. Keep taking the next small step. Over time, those steps become strides, and those strides become success. Your identity is the silent architect behind every decision you make, every habit you form, and every result you experience. Most people focus only on changing their actions, not realizing their actions are simply the output of something much deeper, who they believe themselves to be. When you try to change your behavior without changing your identity, you create internal conflict. You're trying to force new habits on an old version of yourself. But when you shift your identity, your behavior naturally aligns with that new standard. This is why people say they want success, but their actions still reflect doubt, fear, or inconsistency. They're trying to behave like a disciplined person while still seeing themselves as someone who quits. They're trying to act like a leader while still identifying as someone who's unsure. Here's the hook. You don't change your life by changing your actions. You change your life by changing the person who produces those actions. Identity influences everything. If you see yourself as someone who always starts and stops, you'll find reasons to stop. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, you'll reinforce that struggle. But if you see yourself as someone capable, consistent, and committed, your actions naturally follow that belief. The moment you adopt a new identity, you adopt new behaviors. The moment you believe you are the kind of person who honors your word, your habits begin to reflect that belief. And the moment you see yourself as a person destined for more, you stop settling for less. This is why identity is the true root of transformation. Your actions don't shape your identity shapes your actions. Think about the most disciplined people you admire. They don't wake up every day trying to force consistency. Their consistency flows from who they believe they are. A fit person works out because it's part of their identity. A wealthy thinker invests wisely because it aligns with who they see themselves as. A leader leads because they believe leadership is part of their nature. When your identity is aligned with your goals, effort becomes effortless. You naturally do the things your identity expects of you. But when your identity is misaligned, everything feels heavy. Discipline feels forced. Habits feel unnatural. Progress feels slow. That heaviness is not because you're incapable, it's because you're trying to live as two different people at the same time. Identity is shaped by repetition, experience, and self-talk. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you're becoming. When you consistently show up, even in small ways, you begin to rewrite the story you tell yourself. You begin to see evidence that you are capable of more, that you can follow through, that you can evolve. And as this belief grows, your identity strengthens. You no longer have to convince yourself to act. You act because your identity demands it. That's the power of self-alignment. The internal shift creates external momentum. The inner narrative builds outer results. Another important truth is this: identity is not fixed. Many people imprison themselves with outdated self-concepts. They keep identifying with who they used to be instead of who they are becoming. They cling to old labels like inconsistent, undisciplined, or unfocused as if those qualities are permanent. But identity is fluid, adaptable, and moldable. You have the power to redefine yourself at any moment, and that redefinition creates a ripple effect throughout your entire life. Here's another hook. The moment you change the way you see yourself, you change the way you live your life. If you start believing you are a disciplined person, your decisions will begin to match that belief. If you start believing you are a person of excellence, you will seek excellence in everything you do. You don't need to force greatness when greatness becomes part of your identity. You don't need to push yourself when your identity naturally pulls you forward. When you transform your identity, your habits, your standards, your expectations, and your behaviors rise automatically. This is the foundation of true consistency, because when your identity matches your destiny, you no longer chase results. You become the kind of person who attracts them. Your emotions are powerful, but they are also unpredictable, inconsistent, and influenced by circumstances that change from moment to moment. If your progress is tied to how you feel, then your results will always be unstable. One day you feel motivated and energized, so you take action. The The next day you feel tired or discouraged and everything stops. That cycle creates inconsistency, frustration, and a sense of failure that erodes confidence over time. To rise in life, you must learn to separate your decisions from your emotions. Discipline is not about ignoring how you feel, it's about refusing to let your feelings dictate your future. And here's the hook. The moment you stop obeying your emotions, you start building the version of you that your potential has been waiting for. Your emotions were never designed to lead, they were designed to signal. They are indicators, not instructions. They tell you what you're experiencing, but they should never determine what you decide. If you make decisions based on temporary emotions, you end up creating permanent consequences you didn't want. Every time you choose action over emotion, you strengthen your internal authority. You reinforce your ability to lead yourself. You show your mind that you are in control, not your frustration, not your fear, not your laziness, not your doubt. This ability to act independent of emotion is what separates those who occasionally succeed from those who consistently elevate. People often wait for motivation to show up before they move. But motivation is not a strategy, it's a sensation. It comes and goes like weather. Depending on motivation is like trying to build a house on shifting sand. But discipline is bedrock. When you act from commitment instead of emotion, you create stability. You create reliability. You create progress that doesn't collapse the moment you feel tired, bored, or uninspired. And here's another hook. Your emotions might influence your day, but your discipline determines your destiny. Think about the people who achieve anything significant. They don't feel good every day. They don't wake up energized every morning. They don't always want to work, practice, train, study, or build. But here's the truth. You can't escape. Your life will not rise to meet your excuses. It will fall to the level of your discipline. That's the hook most people overlook. Excuses promise comfort, but they deliver failure. Excuses come in many forms: time, energy, circumstances, confidence, resources. But at the core, they are all rooted in fear: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort, fear of responsibility. And fear is persuasive. It gives you reasons that sound logical enough to believe. It whispers, you'll start tomorrow. You need a break. You aren't ready yet. And because these excuses feel familiar, most people accept them without questioning them. But if you look closely, you'll realize excuses do not protect you. They imprison you. They keep you repeating the same patterns, living the same story, and experiencing the same limitations. They turn potential into stagnation. The moment you eliminate excuses, everything changes. You reclaim control. You reclaim momentum. You reclaim personal power. People often think discipline is the hard part, but the real challenge is giving up the excuses you've used to justify mediocrity. When you stop making excuses, you force yourself to rise. You force yourself to be accountable. You force yourself to grow. It is uncomfortable, yes, but growth always is. And here's a powerful hook. Excuses are the enemy of evolution. The moment you stop feeding them, your life begins to transform. Excuses become regrets because time doesn't pause to wait for your readiness. Opportunities don't stay available forever. Dreams don't survive neglect. When you look back years from now, it won't be the difficulties that haunt you. It will be the excuses that stopped you from using the gifts you had. Many people don't realize that every excuse creates a mental pattern. The more you avoid action, the stronger the pattern becomes. You begin to identify as someone who quits, someone who procrastinates, someone who avoids challenges. That identity erodes confidence and builds self-doubt. On the outside, nothing seems to change, but inside, you are training yourself to settle. On the other hand, when you refuse to make excuses, you begin to train a different part of yourself. Your discipline, your resilience, your capability. You start proving to yourself that you can do hard things. Even when they're inconvenient, you build evidence that you are someone who executes, someone who follows through, someone who honors commitments. That evidence strengthens your identity, and that identity strengthens your future. Every time you act without excuses, you cast a vote for a stronger, more successful, more capable version of yourself. Excuses also destroy momentum. Momentum is fragile. It doesn't take much to slow it down, and excuses are one of the fastest ways to break it. One excuse becomes two. Two become a pattern. The pattern becomes a lifestyle. Before you realize it, the fire you once had becomes a flicker. The longer you entertain excuses, the harder it becomes to restart. But when you eliminate excuses, you create unstoppable forward movement. You transform your life through consistent action and intentional decisions. Choosing responsibility over excuses is a powerful shift. It forces you to confront your potential with honesty. It demands that you step into a higher version of yourself. It builds character in silence and transforms your results in public. And here's another hook to engrave into your mind. Excuses sound convincing today, but they become painful tomorrow. Discipline feels uncomfortable today, but it becomes rewarding for the rest of your life. Once you grasp this truth, you will never let excuses steal your destiny again. The work you do in silence is the work that shapes your greatness. Most people crave recognition, applause, and validation. But the truth is that the most important progress you will ever make happens when no one is watching. The small, consistent actions you take behind closed doors are what prepare you for the moments when the world finally sees your results. You cannot build a powerful future on public performance alone. You build it through private discipline. And here's the hook. Your future is watching you even when nobody else is. Your future is taking notes on the days you stay committed, the days you push through resistance, the days you show up with excellence without an audience. That's where real transformation begins. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. When you understand this, you start to value the unseen work. You begin to honor the hours of practice, study, training, reflection, and preparation. You stop worrying about whether anyone notices your effort because you realize the future always notices. Every repetition counts. Every bit of learning compounds. Every moment spent improving becomes part of the foundation you stand on later. This is the part most people underestimate. They think the world rewards talent, but the world actually rewards preparation. And preparation happens in secret. That's why the people who show up with excellence in public have already spent countless hours sharpening themselves in private. They've done the work others avoided. They've invested in themselves long before the payoff was visible. One of the biggest misconceptions about success is that it comes from big, dramatic actions. But success is built quietly through discipline, consistency, and persistence. It's built through early mornings, late nights, focused hours, and small sacrifices. Nobody sees that part, so they assume success is effortless. It's not. It's earned. And here's another hook. The quiet work you do today becomes the loud results they can't ignore tomorrow. Your silence now becomes your applause later. Your discipline now becomes your elevation later. The reason the work you do in secret matters so much is because it builds integrity. It shapes a character that doesn't crumble under pressure. When you show up consistently behind the scenes, you develop internal strength. You become someone who doesn't need motivation to move. You don't rely on external praise to stay committed. You build yourself into a person who performs with excellence regardless of circumstances. That integrity creates trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your abilities, and trust in your process. When you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Another powerful aspect of secret work is that it eliminates ego. When you grind without an audience, you're not performing. You're improving. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to elevate yourself. That's where humility and hunger grow. You begin to value progress over praise and purpose over popularity. And those two qualities, it's the work that transforms your mindset, sharpens your skills, and strengthens your character. It's the work that prepares you for opportunities you don't even know are coming. And when those opportunities arrive, and they will, you'll be ready, not because you got lucky, but because you stayed committed long before anyone believed in you. So today, make a decision. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision. Train yourself to stay consistent. Show up when it's easy, and especially when it's not. Because the version of you that you're becoming, the stronger you, the richer you, the wiser you, is built in the moments nobody sees. Your future is waiting for the consistent you. Your results are waiting for the disciplined you. And your destiny is waiting for the committed you. The question is, will you train yourself to become that person? Because if you do, your life won't just change, it will transform.